Today, I'll be talking about 4 signs that you are ready to hire a book writing coach. What is a book writing coach? Well, a book writing coach is someone who helps you finish your book. They weigh in on process and craft and help you overcome mental blocks to get it done and to get it done well. I coach people through my course, the 12-week book draft, and I also do a bit of one-on-one coaching as well as in addition to the course. There are a lot of book coaches out there these days. I used one years ago when I was writing my first novel, and she really was a lifesaver. So it can be a really good thing for you, but you may not know if it's time. Years ago, when I hired one, I was stuck writing and rewriting my draft. I'd been traumatized by a couple of fiction classes. Traumatized might be a bit of a strong word, but I'd been really set back by a couple of classes that I had taken that left me more confused, a bit bewildered, actually, and discouraged than before I had taken them. So I felt I needed someone, and I wasn't sure who. I didn't even know the term book writing coach existed. I didn't know that was a thing. I just knew that I wanted someone like a friend, but like a friend who was a good writer, ideally better than me at writing, someone who was willing to meet with me regularly and talk through my book process and struggles, to read my pages and to give me feedback, but not to edit them or be too prescriptive about where the story was going. Basically, I wanted like a coach, like athletes have coaches. I wanted someone to guide me and hold my hand, but really help me play to my own strengths as I was nervously and tentatively stepping back into this book project. I had writer friends, but it felt like a lot to ask of someone who was just a friend. And I also didn't want to feel, like I was asking for a favor every time I reached out. I wanted it to be a professional relationship and one in which I didn't hesitate to seek the help I needed. Eventually, I did find one. I found a great one, and she helped me rediscover my joy and confidence in the process and helped me finish my book and kick off my writing career. So let's dive into whether you need or when to know that you need a writing coach. First thing I want to talk about is signs that you don't yet, that you do not need a writing coach. You don't need one if the story is flowing out of you. You're feeling in the flow. You don't have trouble accessing that state, that mental state. Maybe you're stuck occasionally, but never more than a day or so. And your biggest uncertainty is what to do after you finish your draft. Okay. I listed these because I've been in this position where all 3 of these things have been true of me. And in these moments, I haven't needed a writing coach. And, I may have flashes of insecurity, wondering if I do. So that's why I'm telling you, you don't. I think if this describes you, you are A-okay. Keep going, keep it up. You're going to make it to the final page. However, there are some signs that you do need one. Okay. So if those things aren't true, and here's the first one, sign number 1, you have wanted to write a novel or memoir for over a year and you can't seem to get started. I would say that 50% of the writers that I work with fall into this category. Having a book in them that they just can't seem to get out or get started in any meaningful way. They may start occasionally, but they very quickly lose momentum. So if this is you, don't worry, you're not alone. This is really common, far more common than you think. And a really good book coach will work with you not only on craft, but on process so that you can make it to the end of your draft, so that you can identify why you're losing steam, why you're losing motivation and excitement about the project, and address those issues in real time. Sign number 2, you may be ready for a book writing coach, is that you have started several drafts of your book, but you haven't finished any of them. This is probably 25% of the people who I work with. They fall into this category. So again, you are not alone if this is you. just because I love his letter, I'm going to share with you a letter I got from someone in this category about a year ago. Dear Mary, help. My problem is I always start projects, but I can never, ever seem to finish them. I probably have a dozen or more half-written novels on my computer. Some are short, less than 10,000 words. Others are significantly longer, 50,000 words. I'll feel inspired for a while, spend countless hours working on something. Then I'll either lose interest or second guess myself or just get distracted by life. WTF do I do to stay focused on one project and see it through to the end? For the record, I do not struggle with commitment in my daily life. Not is capitalized, which I appreciate. I'm actually a Libra, so committing comes very naturally to me, except when it comes to novels. I cannot seem to commit to them. Okay, so again, if this is you, if you relate to, and he signed it Lost in Literary Limbo, which I really enjoyed. If you relate to Lost in Literary Limbo, you're not alone. You could definitely benefit from a writing coach. Just to wrap up the end of this story, he totally did benefit from writing coaching. Here is a text I got from him after he took my course over the summer. He wrote, I finished my first draft yesterday, 10 exclamation points. Now I'm on to revising, which is the most fun part. Thank you for everything along the way. You legit gave me the advice I needed to finally and actually complete the novel. I wrote faster than ever in 4 months. Also, I think it's the best piece of writing I've ever done. So crazy. I can't believe I did it. Do you know what I did? I just coached him through the process and he did the rest. He wrote the draft. And it's a really strong draft, which he is now sending to agents. He is in the querying phase. So sign number 3 is that you have written one or several book drafts, but you are stuck on this one. So I was actually surprised how many writers I work with who fall into this category. I would say at least 20% or so of them. A big chunk are published writers who have even published books, but are just looking for help finishing their current project, the one that they're on now. They want to change up their writing habits or process. They want inspiration. They just want a fresh take on the whole thing. So even if you've written several books before, if you're stuck on the latest, a good coaching plan could be beneficial to you. And the last one is maybe you just prefer expert guidance and accountability. You know, this was me back in the day, and I'm so glad that I found a good coach because it's how I broke through. I knew I could finish on my own. It wasn't that I didn't think that I would ever go back into working on the book by myself. I just didn't want to, and it didn't sound fun. And I felt lonely, and I felt ragged and raw. And I preferred to do it with someone who I could trust and look up to, who would keep me accountable and keep me company. And so if that's why, if that is something that resonates with you, it could very well be a good call for you at this point as well. Last thing I want to talk about is one other situation that comes up for a lot of writers, which is when you have finished a draft and you're just not sure what comes next. So when you finish a draft and you're just not sure what comes next, you have a couple of options. You're going to need to revise at some point. You shouldn't do that right away. You should set it aside for a bit before you come back to it. You could either hire a professional editor to give you a developmental edit, or you could do something like take a course. A lot of writers who have completed a draft actually take my 12-week book draft course to work on their rewrite. It's a more affordable option than hiring a developmental editor, although a developmental editor can be a great choice if you can afford it and if you're ready for it. For that, I recommend New York Book Editors, which I personally use and is the only editing company that I'll vouch for wholeheartedly. I'll put a link in the notes for them if you want to check them out. You may not need you may not need an editor or a coach if you return to your manuscript and after reading it, you have a clear vision of what it needs. You may be completely equipped to work on your own. Regardless, I would always suggest you have at least one trusted reader provide feedback prior to sending it out to agents. So in sum, if it excites you hearing me talk about this to think of working with a coach, then you're probably ready. Like, what's the energy you feel when you hear me talking about this? Are you positive and excited? Are you eager to get to work? Or are you hesitant and dubious about whether it's something you could benefit from? I would just follow that energy. If you're ready, you'll know. And if you are, my next episode is going to be on how to choose a book writing coach. So be sure to check that out. Thanks for being here.